Good afternoon and welcome everybody for the press conference by Honorable Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh ji on the launch of PSLV C60 SPADEX Space Docking Experiment Mission. I welcome Honorable Union Minister Jitendra Singh ji on behalf of PIB. Welcome to you, sir. I also welcome Shri Prashant Kumar Jha, OSD2 Minister of State, Shri Rajiv Jaiswal, OSD2 Chairman, ISRO and Department of Space. In a groundbreaking milestone of space exploration, India proudly launched the PSLV C60 space docking experiment last night on December 30th, 2024. This achievement marks yet another jewel in India's illustrious journey of space endeavors, showcasing the nation's relentless pursuit of technological excellence and innovation. To begin with, first of all, I would request Shri Rajiv Jaiswal ji, OSD2 Chairman, ISRO and Department of Space, to give a brief introduction on the year-long activities of ISRO. Over to you, Jaiswal ji. Will there be a PPT? Jaiswal ji, can we have the PPT please on the screen? Okay. Please change the backgrounder. Yeah, thank you. Please close that backgrounder. Just close on the screen. Go and check at the back. Can we have the PPT please now? Please put up the PPT. Yes, thank you.
तो पहले तो माननीय विज्ञान एवं प्रौद्योगिकी और पृथ्वी विज्ञान एवं अंतरिक्ष विभाग के राज्य मंत्री माननीय श्री डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह को अंतरिक्ष विभाग की तरफ से मैं स्वागत करता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, कल के सक्सेसफुल लॉन्च के लिए। आप कंटिन्यूसली आप लाइव थे, हम लोगों ने देखा और आपने हम लोगों को प्रोत्साहन किया स्पेडेक्स के लॉन्च पे। सर बहुत मामूली सा एक प्रेजेंटेशन करना चाह रहा हूँ जो इस साल की एक्टिविटीज़ हुई हैं। नेक्स्ट सर, 2024 जैसा सबको पता है काफ़ी उत्साहपूर्वक रहा हम लोगों के लिए। 1 जनवरी से हमने लॉन्च किया PSLV C58 एक्सपोसेट मिशन, और कल का लॉन्च जो दिसंबर 30 को हुआ। तो कुल मिला के इस साल 15 मिशंस हमारे हुए हैं और विभिन्न प्रकार के मिशंस रहे। कुछ तो डिमॉन्स्ट्रेशन डेवलपमेंटल मिशंस रहे, कुछ एनसिल द्वारा कमर्शियल लॉन्च रहे, और हमारे प्राइवेट सेक्टर द्वारा अग्निकुल का स्टार्टअप जो है उसके द्वारा एक लॉन्च हुआ। जस्ट थोड़ा थोड़ा मैं एक एक मिशंस के बारे में बताना चाहूँगा। नेक्स्ट Sir, we started year with January 1st launch of ExpoSat. It was anyway first dedicated scientific satellite from ISRO to carry out research in space-based polarimetry in X-rays missions for the celestial sources. Then on January 6th, sir, the Aditya L1, which was launched 2023 September 2nd, it inserted in its targeted hello orbit on January 6th around 4 p.m. Next. उसके बाद इनसेट 3DS मिशन जो कि फर्स्ट जो कि डिमांड ड्रिवन सैटेलाइट है, फुल्ली फंडेड बाय मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ अर्थ साइंसेस, that was launched using GSLV F14 on February 17, 2024. It was a meteorological satellite providing a lot of weather-related parameters to the country. Then we had launch of a small satellite launch vehicle, August 16, 2024. It was third and final development flight, and it is providing cost-effective and on-demand launch services for the small satellites, and enables operational missions by Indian industry and ANSIL. Next. सर जैसा सबको पता है कि अगस्त 23, 2023 में हमारा चंद्रयान 3 जो सॉफ्ट लैंडिंग हुआ और इट हैज़ क्रिएटेड हिस्ट्री. Honorable Prime Minister declared August 23 as a National Space Day, and its maiden Space Day was celebrated this year in Pragati Bharat Mandapam, where Honorable President of India presided over. So that was very well celebrated event in this year. Next. Then sir GSAT N2 मिशन जो कि एनसिल का डेडिकेटेड मिशन था, वो लॉन्च हुआ फ्रॉम फ्लोरिडा USA. It was a very heavy satellite, 4,700 kilometer, high throughput satellite. And this month itself, we launched PSLV C59 for the Proba 3 mission. Again, a ANSIL mission for European Space Agency solar mission named Proba, which was launched by ANSIL. Next. SPADEX के बारे में तो अभी सर और बताएंगे ही. कल ये सक्सेसफुली लॉन्च हुआ. ये 2 सैटेलाइट्स है टू डिमॉन्स्ट्रेट रेंडावू एंड डॉकिंग बिटवीन दिस 2 सैटेलाइट्स इन ऑर्बिट, एंड इट इज़ गोइंग टू बी प्रिकर्सर टेक्नोलॉजी डिमॉन्स्ट्रेशन मिशन फॉर द स्पेस डॉकिंग to be undertaken for future Gaganyaan and Chandrayaan missions. And as you know, the vision given by Honorable Prime Minister and Government of India 2047, which envisions India being one of the most impactful space power with the Bharati Antariksh Station in orbit by 2035, and Indians having landed on the moon with indigenous technology by year 2040. So this experiment, yesterday's experiment, is going to pave the way for future Amrit Kal missions and all. Next. एक छोटा सा लॉन्च का.
Five, four, three, two, one, zero.
This video shows how it has separated out these two satellites in the space itself, which is going to dock in very soon, another week's time. These are the two satellites, SPADEX A and B. सर जैसा कि पता है ये 2024 वाज अनदर रिमार्केबल ईयर वेयर इसरो और भारतीय स्पेस प्रोग्राम के लिए एक आगे का पूरा रास्ता सरकार ने बना के दे दिया है. The Vision 2047 for space in the Amrit Kal envisages creation of operational Bharati Antariksha Station and Indian crewed lunar mission by 2040. So Department of Space towards Space Vision 2047 with the approval of key missions includes NGLV, the next generation launch vehicle, the reusable low cost launch vehicle, the Chandrayaan 4, Venus orbiter mission, and the Gaganyaan follow-on mission. Sir, 2024 has been a remarkable year and productive year, not just for ISRO, but for the entire Indian space sector. And it has laid the foundation for technologies needed for an Indian human space exploration program in the long run. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jaiswal ji. And now I invite Honorable Union Minister Jitendra Singh ji to brief the media.
I think at the outset, it's my proud privilege to congratulate Team ISRO for having done another, for having made us proud once again. And at the same time, I also wish to thank the Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji. Much of the achievements that were being spelled out to you right now by Mr. Jaiswal have been possible because of the enabling milieu provided in the last 10 years, whether it be the space reforms, the opening of the space sector to the private sector, and allowing FDI, and resulting in some of the world-class startups, which were just in single digit till about 4 years back. Now we are almost 300. And that has been possible to a great extent, I think, because as the media friends very fondly reported at that time, the unlocking of space by Prime Minister Modi. And this is something that had been given up because nobody expected that ever the Department of Space, Government of India would be allowed this kind of liberty. And therefore, known for his capacity to take out-of-box decisions and break many a taboos of the past, when it was put across to Prime Minister Modi, he allowed us. And all these missions, which are not only indigenous, but are also providing inputs and cues to the other space agencies across the world, and the other agencies are now looking forward to collaborate with India, which was not so, which was the other way around. And which, as I always also keep reiterating, that we had no dearth of talent or acumen or the potential among the ISRO scientists, beginning from the times of Vikram Sarabhai. You've seen those pictures in the archive, Sarabhai carrying some of his stuff on the carriage of a bicycle. But possibly what we were lacking was an enabling support from the policymakers of the political dispensation. That is precisely what has happened in the last 10 years. Now, the year 2024, also, I don't know whether you noticed, the year began by making news about space. And I'm sure Pallav would bear me out when I say that. So it was the Aditya, the first solar mission by India, a very ambitious mission, which had entered into L1 point. Of course, been launched earlier, or 3 months earlier, but it got into that destination in the month of January. And then throughout the year, we had, as was being told you, the first ever National Space Day observed in the first 3 months after the Modi government 3.0 took over. Then the Prova 3 mission is again a solar mission, which is, of course, been launched by ISRO, but belongs to the European Space Agency. In other words, we are now also assisting them to accomplish their missions. And in between, so many trials have happened for the Gaganyaan, which is in the pipeline. The first indigenous human mission, of course, the first Indian to go up was Rakesh Sharma, which happened in the early 1980s, but that was a Soviet mission. So the trials are almost now through. We're waiting for the final, you can call it a dress rehearsal in the form of Vayomitra, female robo, which will happen sometime next year, which of course is starting tomorrow itself. And the huge amount of public interest which has been generated by the space achievements has actually created awareness as well as enthusiasm among the common citizens of India in various scientific pursuits across the lines, not only confined to space, whether it's the biotechnology or the basic sciences, the cutting edge technologies, or it is the CSIR activities. Space has actually opened up that possibly that inertia which prevented the space activities to come so openly in the public domain. And to that extent, I also have to appreciate the media and thank them, because science-related news never made actually the mainstream news. So I think it is because of space that we have now started also occupying good space in the media. So space has given us space in media as well. Not only for space now, also for other activities related to science. Now, before we say anything more, except now coming straight to SPADEX, because that's what has inspired today's meeting. As has been already explained to you, this is one of the first experiments undertaken by India as far as the docking technology is concerned. But I think what makes it special is that it is a purely indigenous technology. And that's why it's been appropriately named as Bharatiya docking technology. And that is very much in keeping with Prime Minister Modi's mantra of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Secondly, when we look forward to having a Gaganyaan and we look forward to having multiple satellites in the space, and to put it in simple terms for the benefit of the layman, when we talk of transferring material from one satellite to the one spacecraft to the other, be that the payloads, be that the laboratory samples, the inputs, and maybe someday even the human being walking one spacecraft to the other, or to and fro. This technology is going to enable us to accomplish that, which would be a sequel to Gaganyaan, and later on when we are planning to have the first Indian placing his foot on the surface of moon by the year 2040. And also when we have our own space station, which has been scheduled as of now for 2035. So when we have a space station over there, as I said, to put it in the layman's language, how do we land there? How do we move things there? So we need to have this technology. We can't simply have a station there which is just hanging in space and we sitting down here watching it. So how do we actually arrange transportation to and fro? And that is where, to put it in simple terms, this docking technology, which is also undocking at the same time, is going to help. This being very cost effective. Our two satellites, one named Chaser, the other one named the Target, have cost just about 125 crore rupees each, and our launch vehicle 250, which makes it hardly about 375 crore or so, which is a very small fraction of the similar missions undertaken by other agencies, whether it's the NASA or it's the European Space Agency. And that has once again confirmed our abilities to go in for cost-effective missions at a competitive level, which was also made evident by our Chandrayaan 3. It was just about 600 crore. The other new feature of it would be the biological experiment, which we I think was not mentioned. So we have a program called CROP. So CROP stands for Compact Research Module for Plant Research. So there'll be research related to crops research as we move on to have our astronauts staying over there, possibly in Bharat, the Antariksh station, and then we also arrange for the other amenities required. How do we experiment with that? And simultaneously, very much in keeping with the concept of whole of science and whole of government, I think I also wish to add to what has been already said, that this mission was also accomplished in collaboration with a number of other institutions across the country. The Tata Institute, the IIT, Indian Institute of Sciences. Of course, it was ISRO which was doing the launching and carrying out but in one way or the other, others were also contributing. And interestingly, which might sound a little unusual, we also have now roped in the Department of Biotechnology, which seems to be a little distant from all that the space meant for, because we have a valid reason for that. When we send up the human into the space, to begin with, of course, in a human space mission, later on to land on the surface of the moon, and then possibly also to stay inside the Bharat Antariksh station, how would his physiology behave? What would be his biological requirements over there? How do we meet them? How do we live up to them? So space biology is a new area of study which is emerging. And I'm glad that India has decided to take a lead. So we have entered into an MOU between the ISRO and the Department of Biotechnology. And therefore, we would also be able to tell the rest of the world what happens to an astronaut where, at what position in the space, and how do you manage that. I think I don't need to tell you about the various technical aspects as he's mentioned. The docking, I think, is also abundantly shown in the live television visuals yesterday, how they get closer. I mean, it's amazing that from the speed of as much as 28,800 kilometers, because you have to generate interest among the young startups. I think this needs to be also told to young children, those who are the initiators into science. How fascinating, in fact, how romantic it is. From a speed of 28,800 kilometers, you reduce down to as less a speed or a velocity of just 0.038 kilometers. And then gradually you get close, virtually emerging, which you may not be doing when you're driving two vehicles on the roadside, but you're doing this in the space. It's just like opening the doors of the two vehicles and then the passengers exchanging the vehicle. You can move into your vehicle, you move into my vehicle. So something so fascinating and so romantic, which you would have heard in the fairy tales in your kindergarten days, is actually being accomplished now in space. So why I'm saying so is that that would generate interest among the youngsters. We have a lot of many youngsters now coming forward, and some of the sky routes that he was naming are among now the world potential, not only world potential startups, but also very, very lucrative entrepreneurs. Some of them have made a fortune within a small amount of time. The other part, I think, which is also of tremendous interest to the media, is that in the last few years, our space economy is also on the rise, which means I often take pleasure in saying that when we say that we will be number 3, after 4, then 3, then 5 trillion, and then gradually reach that pedestal by 2047. As scientific minds, what is expected of us is to analyze, to share, and to tell where is the value addition going to come from. So value addition to this growth of India's economy or India's growth story, as far as economics is concerned, will come from those sectors which were either unexplored or underexplored, which also includes the space sector. The other sectors, of course, being the marine resources, for which also the same government has started a deep sea mission, which was announced by Prime Minister right for the efforts of the Red Fort in his Independence Day address. And third one, of course, the Himalayan resources, where again I'm proud that the same ministry through CSIR has launched a Roma mission, of which also again Prime Minister very encouragingly spoke in one of his Man Ki Baat broadcasts. But now coming to space specifically, we have started adding to our space economy. Today, we are just about 2% of the economy, but we hope that within 7-8 years, we'll go out about 4 times. So from 8.4 billion US dollars, we hope to go up to 44 billion US dollars. And that's happened because of an increasing participation, collaboration, and doing away with the demarcation between the private and the public sector. And that is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that we are also increased our earnings through the launchings of foreign satellites. So it sounds not only amazing, it gives you a sense of pride that we started off our journey much, much later. ISRO was born in 1969, the year when NASA landed its first human being on the surface of the moon. But today, we are earning from NASA by launching their satellite. So, to be more precise, we have so far earned 172 million US dollars by launching the US satellites, and as much as 292 million euros through the European satellites. The process had, in a small measure, a small scale, began before 2014, but it was virtually non-existent. The entire push has happened now, which again I can statistically prove to you that we have 292 European satellites sent so far, launched so far from Sriharikota, out of which 260, nearly 90% were launched after Prime Minister Modi came in 2014. And similarly, if you look at the American satellites, out of 172, I am talking of, I was talking of euros, sorry. If you talk the satellites, out of the total foreign satellites, for 432 launched so far, as many as 397, which means over 90% have been launched after 2014. And similarly, if in the terms of euros, out of 292 euros that I just now told you, as much as 260 million were earned in the last 10 years, and out of $172 million, as much as 157 million earned in the last 10 years. So in the last 10 years, it's been 9% hike in our space economy, and we hope to maintain the same pace. In fact, it's quite likely that our pace will go up further. And now we have also added on, for the first time, another location for launching in the Tuticorin district of Tamil Nadu, which will be handy also for many other reasons. And some of the upcoming, we have very ambitious calendar lined up for the next few years. As he mentioned, we are going to have this Vayomitra Gaganyaan, as I mentioned a few moments earlier. NICER, which is the NASA and ISRO, which was deferred, is going to happen again in March. Gaganyaan, of course, all the 4 astronauts have been identified, and if not by the end of 25, beginning of 26, it will be there. Chandrayaan in 27, Venus mission in 27, which Pallav has his nose, we named it as Shukriyaan, but official name is Venus mission. Anyway, we borrow many things from him. And 2035 Bharat Antariksh Station, and 2040 will be the Indian human being on the surface of the moon. So these are some of the ambitious missions lined up. And I think another model that has been placed before the world through the Department of Space, Government of India, is that we are no longer confined only to the launching of rockets. For the benefit of those cynics who sometimes say, what is the fun? What are you going to gain out of sending? So may I tell them that our space missions are just a fraction of the cost of the counterpart missions sent by other agencies, though we are in a select lead of just about 3 or 4 nations. But our application of space technology in different sectoral projects is much, much higher in scale compared to any other country. Whether it's the health sector, it's the agriculture sector. Just now you were talking about the Swamitva program, which was to happen 2 days back because the mourning period got deferred. again using space technology, one of the role models for the rest of the world, where you can do the mapping of your farms and your land using drones and the space technology. Whether it is the construction of the smart cities, roads and buildings, bridges, unmanned railway crossings. So you name any sector, space technology in India has been applied almost in every sector of development and every infrastructure project. So with these few words, I think I once again, and yes, just to add to the reporting part of it, the docking is possibly going to happen on the 6th, on the 7th, sometime during the forenoon, which will be again a very interesting sight when the two satellites actually come close to each other.
Thank you, sir. And now I open the floor for questions. Number 2, please.
Technology, the Bharatiya docking technology, which is indigenous. I'd like to know how different is it from the existing technologies of NASA, Russia, and China, if we can have some information. on
No, on the contrary, which also we have mentioned in our review that we gave, we have developed it indigenously, but it is approved by the authorities which are concerned with the approval of the docking technologies. In fact, in some ways it is rather better, in the sense that you are using lesser number of payloads. Is that right? So your weight will reduce by then. So in a way, it is not different. Of course, when you drive a car, the engine has to be similar, but we have improved upon that in the sense that our load would be lesser, price would be lesser, and in the process, the weight of the vehicle itself will come down.
125.
सर, संजय शर्मा इंडिया न्यूज़ से। सर, मेरा सवाल है कि गगनयान का आपने टारगेट दिया 2028 तक कि गगनयान 2028 तक हो जाएगा। अभी सर किस
ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा 26 तक
2026 तक, और अभी किस स्थिति में सर? एक तो ये, और कल जो हमने जो अचीवमेंट किया है, कल का जो अचीवमेंट है, उसका भारत पर कितना प्रभाव है और किस किस क्षेत्र में प्रभाव है?
नहीं, धन्यवाद। सबसे पहली बात तो ये कि गगनयान की अभी ये हमारी टेस्ट फ्लाइट्स चल रही है, क्योंकि उसके अलग अलग मॉड्यूल्स हैं। एक का क्रू मॉड्यूल है, एक का उसका एक्सपेरिमेंट का मॉड्यूल है, और दूसरा ये है कि उसको वापस किस प्रकार से सुरक्षित ले आना, क्योंकि जिस तरह से अंतरिक्ष में भेजने का भी एक बहुत बड़ी चुनौती भी रहती है और एक बड़ा उसमें आनंद भी महसूस होता है उसको भेजने, उसी प्रकार की चुनौती है उनको सुरक्षित वापस लाना पानी में। और वो भी एक होल ऑफ साइंस एंड होल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट अप्रोच के साथ होता है। वहाँ नेवल गार्ड्स की भी भागीदारी रहती है, इंडियन नेवी की भी रहती है कि कैसे वहाँ से हमारे जो अंतरिक्ष में गए हुए हमारे सज्जन हैं उनको किस तरह से वापस उनका इंश्योर करना। तो उस सब के लिए अलग अलग मॉड्यूल्स का और अलग अलग फंक्शंस का टेस्ट फ्लाइट्स एक श्रृंखलाबद्ध तरीके के साथ होता है। वो सिलसिला जारी है, लगभग समाप्त होने को है। जब वो सारा संपन्न हो जाएगा तो फिर एक फाइनल हमारे फ्लाइट रहेगी, जिसे मैंने कहा कि हम साधारण शब्दों में, हालांकि वो कोई अधिकृत वैज्ञानिक एक्सप्रेशन नहीं है, लेकिन हम कह सकते हैं फाइनल ड्रेस रिहर्सल। तो उसमें भी एक मानव जीवित ना जा करके एक रोबो जाएंगे, और वो रोबो फीमेल रोबोट होंगे, जिनका नाम होगा, और वो वही सारे कार्य अंजाम देंगे जो जब मानव जाएगा वो करेगा। वो सारे संपन्न करके जब वो वापस सुरक्षित उसी तरह उतरेंगे पानी में, और हम उनको सुरक्षित धरती पर ला करके उनका स्वागत कर सकेंगे, तो फिर हम संतुष्ट हैं कि अब हम अगला फाइनल फ्लाइट भेज सकते हैं गगनयान का। और वो सारी प्रक्रिया इस वर्ष के अंदर लगभग संपन्न हो जाएगी।
35।
और दूसरा ये है कि जो आपने कहा कि इसका क्या रहेगा स्पेडेक्स का, गगनयान के बाद जैसे हम भारतीय अंतरिक्ष स्टेशन में जा रहे हैं, तो वहाँ पर भी अगर हमने कुछ पेलोड अंदर भेजने हैं, कुछ बैटरीज एक्सचेंज करनी है, या हमें लगता है कि किसी सैटेलाइट को जब हमने भेजा था तो ये समझ के, ये कल्पना करके भेजा था कि 2 वर्ष रख रहा है, फिर लगा कि नहीं, जो इससे हमें इनपुट्स आ रही हैं उनको अभी उस सिलसिले को थोड़ा जारी रखना में हमें लाभ रहेगा, बजाय इसके कि इनको वापस लाए सैटेलाइट को फिर दूसरा भेजें तो और ज़्यादा खर्चा आएगा। तो हो सकता है हम इसी प्रक्रिया के माध्यम से वहाँ बैटरी वहाँ नहीं पहुँचा दें, उनकी लाइफ लंबी कर दें, तो अनेकों तरीके से। या भारत अंतरिक्ष स्टेशन में कल एस्ट्रोनॉट्स भी जा सकते हैं।
Sir, Anupam Mishra from All India Radio. Sir, growing threat of space junk has been an issue of concern, and what
स्पेस
growing threat of space junk? What is delaying also delaying the launch of missions? So, what government of India and especially ISRO is doing on this?
Yeah, that's in other words, space debris is of course a new area, because more and more number of satellites, there are thousands of satellites in fact hovering over the Indian space as well. But in fact, I have suggested someday we could arrange a small visit by some of the media friends from Delhi. So we did that for some of the friends from South, from Bengaluru and Chennai. We are among the first who just about 2 years back got a technology to detect the debris and also to enable our satellites to avoid it and also to manage it. So we are already into it. So we are very conscious of it, very seriously seized the matter, and in fact we are now confidently placed to handle this as well. So it's to be seen to be believed. We have a huge screen at our ISRO headquarters which gives you a real-time feedback all the 24 hours.
37.
Hi, sir. Shovik Das from Mint, sir. Wanted to understand, you mentioned that we have a very encouraging calendar of launches and missions going forward in the coming years. What kind of projects are we looking at? Do they include research as well as commercial? And if you could give some color on the kind of annualized revenue that we expect the space sector to generate in maybe the next 2 to 3 years, given that private startups are also coming into operation instead of just being on testing stages?
No, I think private sector has already stepped in a big way. Now, like for example, the first 2 startup groups who sought the services of the Sriharikota launch station to launch their rockets. The first one, of course, was suborbital. Now they are planning to go beyond that. Have actually now turned into entrepreneurs in just about 2-3 years. One of them has set up a factory developing, I think the first ever factory developing rockets in the private sector, which is located quite close to the Hyderabad airport. And they are now, I was in fact telling them in the lighter vein, I said, you paid us to launch your vehicle and now you expect us to pay you to purchase your rockets. But it's very reassuring to find that our startups actually are moving from one level to the other. And the space sector startups are also creating a precedence for others to follow. And also creating a lot of interest in the media.
47.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर, मनोहर केसरी फ्रॉम न्यूज़ एक्स ITV नेटवर्क्स। सर, पहला क्वेश्चन है कि स्पेडेक्स अगर हम लेमन टर्म में कहें तो इससे क्या क्या फ़ायदे होने वाले हैं। सेकंड सर, एक इशू है राजस्थान में जैसलमेर के रेगिस्तान में वाटर मिला जो अचानक हम देख रहे हैं, क्या मंत्रालय की ओर से कोई रिपोर्ट तलब की गई है, उस पर भी आप लोग देख रहे हैं सर?
नहीं, फायदे तो मुझे लगता है कि हमने काफ़ी इसका विवरण हो गया, क्योंकि अगर हमने अगले स्तर पर जाना है तो हमारे पास ये टेक्नोलॉजी होना अनिवार्य है। वरना क्या होता है कि हम केवल सैटेलाइट छोड़ते हैं, फिर उसकी लाइफ समाप्त हो जाती है, तो या तो वो अंतरिक्ष में ही खो जाता है, वो अपनी सूचनाएं भेजना बंद कर देता है, हम भी उसके साथ कम्युनिकेट करना बंद कर देते हैं, या फिर वो कहीं कहीं लौट आता है, लेकिन उसका कोई इस तरीके से हम उसका जीवन काल बढ़ा सकते हैं। हम दूसरे सैटेलाइट के माध्यम से कुछ आमोदरफ्त का काम करना हो, भले ही वो पेलोड्स हैं, सामान है, या आगे चल करके मानव भी हो सकता है, वो कर सकते हैं। यानी ये इस तरह से है कि एक सैटेलाइट अपना दरवाज़ा खोलेगा कि एक दूसरे सैटेलाइट से कुछ आ जा सके। ये एक कठिन टेक्नोलॉजी है, और हमारे लिए संतोषजनक बात यह है कि भारत ने इसे अपने तौर पर अपने ही साधनों से, इंडिजिनस साधनों से इसको हासिल भी किया, और उन देशों की तुलना में हम आकर के उनके स्तर पर आकर के खड़े हो गए जो कई वर्ष पहले से इस प्रयास में लगे हुए थे। और अगर एक वाक्य में कहा जाए तो अगले आने वाले समय की जो हमारी मिशन रहेंगी उनके लिए इस प्रकार की टेक्नोलॉजी का होना अनिवार्य है, नहीं तो वो हमारी अगली मिशंस के लिए एक तरह का एक लिमिटेशन बन जाएगा, सेल्फ लिमिटिंग हो जाएगा। वी मे नॉट बी एबल टू मूव बियॉन्ड अ सर्टेन limit if we don't have this technology.
125.
सर सागर कुलकर्णी पीटीआई से। ये अभी 2 छोटे सैटेलाइट्स रिलेटिवली लॉन्च किए हैं 220 किलोग्राम्स के। सो ये क्या और भी हेवियर सैटेलाइट्स के साथ ये टेस्ट करना पड़ेगा बिफोर इट इज़ यूज्ड फॉर एक्चुअल डॉकिंग इन द भारतीय अंतरिक्ष स्टेशन? और ये यूएस में एक हमारे एस्ट्रोनॉट है ट्रेनिंग ले रहे हैं एक्सियोम 4 मिशन के लिए, क्या उसके बारे में कोई लॉन्च कब जाएंगे इंटरनेशनल स्पेस स्टेशन, उसके बारे में कुछ अपडेट्स हैं?
इंटरनेशनल स्पेस स्टेशन का जाने का जो आपका दूसरा भाग है वो तो अभी हो ही रहा है आने वाले दिनों में। अगले वर्ष के आरंभ में इस प्रकार की, और उसमें भी हमारे लिए गर्व की बात यह है कि जब प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी वॉशिंगटन डीसी गए थे दौरे पर, तो वहाँ से ये सुझाव आया और ये प्रस्ताव आया कि भारतीय मूल के कुछ अंतरिक्ष विशेषज्ञ भी आए और उनके हमरा वो इंटरनेशनल स्टेशन, यानी भारतीय वैज्ञानिकों की प्रतिभा और उनकी काबिलियत का एक तरह का एक्नॉलेजमेंट भी है, मान्यता भी है। और दूसरी बात ये, जैसे आपने ठीक कहा कि ये इस प्रयोग का आरंभ है, अब स्वाभाविक है कि हमने इससे आगे जाना है, और जब हम आगे जाएंगे तो बड़े सैटेलाइट्स के साथ भी प्रयोग होगा, भिन्न भिन्न प्रकार की स्पेस क्राफ्ट्स के साथ भी होगा, क्योंकि सैटेलाइट तो थोड़ा सा लिमिटेड टर्म है, बट आई थिंक ब्रॉडली स्पीकिंग इट इज लाइक स्पेस क्राफ्ट, जैसे एयरक्राफ्ट है वैसे स्पेस क्राफ्ट। तो स्वाभाविक है कि आगे भी उसी प्रकार से हम बढ़ते जाएंगे अपने अनुभव के आधार पर।
Number 2.
व्हाट इज पल्लव सेइंग?
Namaskar, Pallav Bagla from NDTV. Congratulations on a great start to the new year and a great ending to the new this year. 2 questions, sir. So we always talk of startups. In this mission, we saw an established player in space contributing both to the rocket and to the satellite. Is that a move we expect more in times to come? Secondly, so can you give a little detailed answer on how the roadmap was developed for the next 25 years? Was it a genesis from your office, a genesis from ISRO, or a genesis from Prime Minister Narendra Modi? And give some detail on that, because there is some clarity needed how the roadmap came about.
Yeah, thank you, Pallav. I think responding to the first part of your question, of course, established players would continue to have their role as much as the startups. So it's not that the startups are asking the elders or the established ones to be eliminated. In fact, there's a very healthy now synergy happening. Because earlier on, before Prime Minister Modi opened up the space sector to private players, we were not only limiting ourselves resource-wise in the terms of finances, but also knowledge-wise. Now we have a lot of newer inputs also coming in the form of these young minds, young brains who come to collaborate. Sometimes they do some value addition. Like, for example, when one of those earlier startups used the facility, ISRO's facility, to launch its rocket, we then realized, and I shared with Somnath, they had put a camera on the top of the rocket, because they came from a new genre of society. So they knew some of these intricacies better than us. So I asked them, I said, what is this? He said, sir, you picturize these launching from the ground. We have put in a camera. It will capture it from there and send it to us. So there's much of healthy synergy happening between the young minds, fresh minds, and also the veterans. Now, as far as the second part of you is concerned, of course, this government works in a very holistic manner, not in silos, whole of science plus whole of government, and also whole of nation. Ultimately, it has to be for the good of the citizen of the country. And when you mention where is the planning done, I think the planning is also done very synergized manner. But what is most encouraging is that we have a huge support from the Prime Minister's personal indulgence itself. And sometimes I shudder to think whether it would have ever been possible to open up the space sector to the private sector if we did not have someone like Shri Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister. Because for 60, 70 years it went on like that. But the successive governments were complacent and also contented with the status quo, to the extent that even the space researchers had given up making a demand like this. But if we are looking forward to be there on that pedestal, that Viksit Bharat, when we have to look for global benchmarks, global strategies, global parameters, and therefore we have to, if we have to compete globally, we have to follow the same strategies which are being followed. Now, NASA, for example, and then we have a whole ecosystem, Pallav, you will appreciate. I mean, space is not functioning in isolation. You have the National Research Foundation, which is coming into being, which is also going to hugely contribute to our science-related missions, including space missions, where again, in keeping with the tone and tenor of the present government, we are going to have more than 60% of resource from the non-government quarters.
26.
So, Ishwari from NDTV. So, over here, on your left. Sir, because there is a lot of curiosity on the minds of people as far as Gaganyaan mission is concerned, we will bring back our own astronauts to the Earth. Sunita Williams and other astronauts are still stuck in the space. Is ISRO taking the feedback from the NASA, or how closely they're planning accordingly, because the astronauts have to be brought back and there are some astronauts who are stuck?
No, actually only the other day, I and the chairman were discussing, of course, we have a culture of exchanging inputs, because you rightly mentioned, some of times the challenges are similar. So, of course, we keep learning from the inputs received by them, but they have now made some headway, that was told to us by NASA. And of course, learning from that experience, are we also moving forward? And this docking technology is also a step in that direction.
35.
सर, मैं पीयूष पांडे हूँ, TV9 भारतवर्ष से। जैसा कि आपने बताया कि अंतरिक्ष विज्ञान क्षेत्र में भारत बड़ी तेजी से बढ़ रहा है, तो मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ कि सरकार का क्या आकलन है कि अगले 10 वर्षों में जो भारतीय अर्थव्यवस्था है उसमें भारतीय अंतरिक्ष विज्ञान क्षेत्र की क्या भूमिका होगी?
नहीं, जैसा मैंने आपसे कहा कि जब हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था उस शिखर पटल पर पहुंचेगी तो उसकी वैल्यू एडिशन उन साधनों से होगी जो शायद पहले ना पर्याप्त तौर पर तराशे गए ना तलाशे गए, चाहे वो हमारे समुद्र के साथ संबंधित साधन थे, हिमालय के साथ 4-5 राज्य हमारे हिमालय की गोद में बसते हैं, अरुणाचल, उत्तराखंड, हिमाचल, जम्मू कश्मीर, और साथ ही साथ हमारा अंतरिक्ष का क्षेत्र, जिसके लिए हमारे पास प्रतिभा थी, योग्यता थी और प्रतिबद्धता और मेहनत, ये गुण भी थे हमारे विशेषज्ञों में, परंतु उस प्रकार का उनको सहयोग नहीं प्राप्त हुआ जिस प्रकार का उन्हें अपेक्षित था नीति निर्धारकों के तरफ से। वो 2014 के बाद सफल हुआ है, और यही कारण है कि मैं जैसे कह रहा था कि मात्र 1-2% हमारा हिस्सा था भौगोलिक स्तर पर स्पेस इकोनॉमी का। आज हम इतनी तेज रफ्तार से आगे बढ़ने लगे हैं कि इतना साहस है हमें ये कहने का कि अगले 7-8 वर्षों में हम 4 गुना और हो जाएंगे, 8-10% तक पहुंच जाएंगे। यदि आज हम मात्र 4-8 बिलियन US$ पर खड़े हैं, तो होने वाला समय में अगले 10 वर्ष से पहले ही, आपने 10 वर्ष का, लेकिन उससे पहले ही शायद हम 24 बिलियन तक पहुंचे। तो कहने का तात्पर्य यह है कि अपनी क्षमताओं का पूरा उपयोग पर्याप्त तौर पर अभी होना शुरू हुआ, और इस तरह से स्पेस सेक्टर को भी इसका लाभ मिलने वाला है। और स्पेस का एक महत्वपूर्ण योगदान रहने वाला है हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था में।
39.
सर आपने जो हमारा सेकंड लॉन्च पैड बन रहा है उसके बारे में मेंशन किया, वो कब तक ऑपरेशनलाइज हो जाएगा और वहाँ से कौन से लॉन्चेस होंगे? सर सिर्फ मतलब स्मॉल सैटेलाइट्स लॉन्च होंगे या हमारे इसरो के भी कुछ सैटेलाइट्स वहाँ से लॉन्च किए जाएंगे?
क्या क्या है प्लीज एक बार दोबारा कहिए आप। हाँ हाँ, क्या क्या क्या
सर जो आपने ये हमारे सेकंड जो लॉन्च पोर्ट बन रहा है तुतिकोरिन में, उसके बारे में बोला, वो कब तक ऑपरेशनलाइज होगा एंड कौन से सैटेलाइट्स वहाँ से लॉन्च किए जाएंगे?
बताएं। उसका भी तो शिलान्यास हुआ था प्रधानमंत्री की ओर से चुनाव से थोड़े समय पहले। आप कुछ जोड़ना चाहेंगे?
नहीं, उसके सारे डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन फ्लाइट सब उसके हो चुके हैं और बहुत जल्दी ही वो वहाँ से शुरू होगा और वहाँ से प्राइवेट सेक्टर उसको यूज़ करके अपने छोटे छोटे सैटेलाइट्स को वहाँ से लॉन्च कर पाएगा। इसरो के भी जो छोटे लॉन्चेस होंगे वो भी थ्रू NSIL उसको यूज़ करके वहाँ से लॉन्च करेंगे।
37.
SSLV डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन हुए ना, SSLV D3। नहीं, अभी वहाँ से नहीं हुए, SSLV हुई।
विद्युतीकरण का भी काम शुरू हुआ है ना, कंस्ट्रक्शन का अभी तो शिलान्यास हुआ उसका 4-5-6 महीने हुए। No, I think there are 2 or 3, broadly speaking. A, that of course, now the launches are increased in number, so we need to have. And B, also, the placement of this location is such. The other one is located towards the other side, on the towards the northern side. This is deeper to the southern side. So some of these spacecrafts don't need to take a turn as they would do when they are launched from the space from Sriharikota. They would go this way. So depending upon what is the destination scheduled, there might be some ease of launching from this location. Because the location matters, because the direction taken by the spacecraft and the velocity is also to an extent determined by where exactly you want it to be placed. And therefore, this location would have its own advantages because it's placed more towards south. Is that right? You want to add something?
37.
कई बार जैसे गाड़ी को टर्न करके लाना है आपने, हो सकता है यहाँ टर्न करने की जरूरत ना, सीधा जाए आप. So just certainly it will have its own merits, the other one will have its own merits, and then we have an option, the choice of choosing which is more ideal for a given launch. Sorry? No, they have to be close to the waters, but one is placed northern compared to the other. So it does make a difference.
Hi, sir. Soumya Pillai from the print. Sir, the initial plan for Gaganyaan was...
The timeline otherwise scheduled is 2 years for this duty current. But then, in constructions like this, sometimes some imponderables happen. Like, for example, Gaganyaan is one of those examples. We had planned it much earlier, but COVID came in, and then some of the international considerations also that got delayed.
Sir, Soumya Pillai from the print. Sir, I just wanted to know that the initial plan for Gaganyaan, like you just mentioned, was that the robotic mission was to happen this year and the crewed mission was to happen in 2025. Can we get some clarity on what is causing the delay for this mission? Also, apart from NISAR and the Gaganyaan uncrewed, can we get more launches that are planned for 2025, just to get a sense of how the year is going to look like?
No, I think the delay, whatever in the launch of Gaganyaan has happened on more than one account, and some of them imponderables, as I said. Nobody had foreseen a pandemic happening. And right at the time of pandemic, precisely, our astronauts were undergoing training in the Gregory Institute in Russia. So they had to be called back for the reasons of lockdown, etc., etc. So the entire thing got halted. Then later on, in between, we had other missions coming up. Because once a mission gets slightly derailed from its initial schedule time, then the subsequent schedule times also get sometimes disturbed, because we have missions lined up. Sriharikota has such a busy calendar, and many of the dates are determined in heavens. You can't, if it is not happening today, I can't say, okay, if it has not happened on this Tuesday, let's do it next Tuesday. I'll have to ask the heavens, when can I do it? Because the placement of the various space bodies, the planets, etc., would determine the next possible date. So meanwhile, the other missions came in. I think most importantly, the Chandrayaan-3, which was a very ambitious mission for India, because we were landing for the first time at the South Pole of Moon, and the entire world was watching us. In fact, not only for the fascination part of it, but also for the inputs which are going. Then the Aditya came in, again was very important, was already scheduled. It was to be the first solar mission. And then we had already scheduled Provo 3. We had already committed to them that we would give our launching facility, we would launch for them, the European Space Agency. So that also caused a delay. And then meanwhile, when you were going through the series of test flights, initially we plan a number of test flights. But when we are through it, sometimes, because we have to achieve the optimum levels of satisfaction before we move on, because we are also dealing with the human lives. As I said, getting an astronaut back is as important as the fascination of sending him up. So in the course of those test flights, sometimes the team feels, look here, we can have one more test flight. So that way. But now we are very clear, we are almost in the final stages. And once Vayomitra happens, I think then any time, whatever the feasible date, Gaganyaan will be also happening.
127, this should be the last question, I think.
Sir, you have given a vivid description of the space technology. So I would like to ask you, if the weather has to be implemented according to the need of the people, how far the space technology would help us, and how far we have reached to that level so that we can bring the weather to our own requirements, sir? Thank you.
No, I'm glad you asked that. The weather also, as was being mentioned by the presentation made by him, one of the satellites has been actually suggested, supported by the Ministry of Earth Sciences, with which also incidentally I am associated. So the ISRO has launched it for the benefit of the Earth Sciences objectives, including the weather. And very recently you had Mission Mausam launched, which was also a part of the third term of the government, which is Modi 3.0. And the weather forecasts, unlike in the bygone years, were using mostly radar information, etc. Then they moved on to space technology. But now we are moving further also. So there's huge involvement of space technology in order to make the forecasts more precise. And not only in weather, but also in the forecast of disasters. We have virtually mastered the disaster preparedness technology. And we are also now offering our services to the other countries, mostly the neighboring countries. So we are now way ahead. And if you are seeing only from the point of view of weather, we are also, I mean, though that's not strictly related to the Department of Science or the subject of this afternoon's media interaction, but we are in the process of setting up with the Ministry of Earth Sciences through IMD a whole lot of new weather stations because now that we are also into the 150th year of IMD. Because, like, for example, most of these questions are prompted by the Delhi weather. And obviously so, we don't guide that, we have to live up to that expectation. So what is happening is that Delhi of today is no longer Delhi per se. Haryana is also Delhi, UP is also Delhi, spread all. So we need to have more number of those stations. For example, sitting here, my forecast may not be as precise as you would expect for Greater Noida or something like that. But now we are already in process. I think within a year or so, we will have more number of these pickup points, and our forecast will also become more and more precise. And of course, they'll be using the space technology as well.
3.
सर नमस्कार, मदन जेड़ा हिंदुस्तान से हूँ। 2-3 सवाल हैं। एक तो यह कि जैसे आपने कुछ डाटा बताया इसरो के अर्निंग के, तो अगर हम टोटल रेवेन्यू की बात करें, इसरो क्योंकि डोमेस्टिक एजेंसी से भी चार्ज करता होगा, तो एनुअल रेवेन्यू इसरो का टोटल क्या है, बाहर का और डोमेस्टिक सब मिलाकर? दूसरा, जो हैवी सैटेलाइट हैं उनको अभी भी इसरो पूरी तरह से लॉन्च नहीं कर पा रहा है, इसके लिए बाहर की एजेंसियों पे डिपेंडेंसी है, ये कब तक खत्म हो जाएगी? और तीसरा, अगर हम 2025 की बात करें तो टोटल कितने मिशन 2025 में शुरू होने हैं? क्या उसमें गगनयान की सिर्फ एक अनमेन्ड फ्लाइट होगी या 2 अनमेन्ड फ्लाइट होंगी?
नहीं, ये मैंने जो आखिरी भाग आपका कि 2025 का मेरे ख्याल से मैंने बताया, जनवरी में हमारा नेविक होगा, वो शायद मैंने नहीं बताया था क्योंकि ज़्यादा महत्वपूर्ण बात कर रहे थे। तो नेविगेशन विद इंडियन कंस्टलेशंस, नेविक 02, और ये नेविक श्रृंखला भी प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी के द्वारा ही लॉन्च की गई थी, बल्कि उनका विधिवत उसका लॉन्चिंग भी उन्होंने किया था। उसके बाद हमारा यूएस सैटेलाइट फॉर मोबाइल कम्युनिकेशन, जिसमें आप सैटेलाइट के माध्यम से फ़ोन कॉल कर सकेंगे, वो भी एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सा हमारा मिशन रहेगा। अभी तक उसको फरवरी मास के लिए शेड्यूल किया गया है। उसके बाद वायोमित्र आएगा। वायोमित्र हमारा अनमैन्ड मिशन रहेगा। अभी तक तो हमारे पास एक ही फाइनल रोबो मिशन है, भी दूसरे का कुछ इस प्रकार की योजना नहीं है, और मुझे लगता है उसकी आवश्यकता भी ना पड़े। फिर मार्च के महीने आते ही हमारा नाइजर, जो नासा इसरो, no, not February, March, I'm saying maybe in the next few months, not necessarily February, that's not been scheduled precisely. February we'll have this US satellite for mobile communication, which is again a new area we are entering in. Then March, that mission which was deferred, the NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar, again very interesting. It will be capable of picking up pictures of the surface of Earth up to precision of as small as 1 centimeter. So down from above you can take a picture, a very clear visual of any part of the Earth up to a range of 1 centimeter. And this picturization will keep happening in a cycle almost every 12 days. So it will give you a whole lot of, so far we've always said that the world has shrunk, it's become a global. I think the entire universe is going to shrink now. Then I think these are the important missions of 2025. Is there anything else? PSLV N1 है, हाँ वो तो that will be, वो तो उसका private participation के साथ है. We have New Space India Limited, a PSU which was set up after the space reforms, and InSpace, which is the interface. So through New Space India Limited, one of the PSLV. But the more fascinating ones I have just enumerated to you. Not very sure. Could be, otherwise the beginning of 26.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, friends. Yes, we will share.
SPADEX. हाँ, जो इन्होंने किया, हाँ.
We will share, sir.
उसमें आपका तो कुछ है नहीं, वो उसमें नहीं उसमें है, उसकी कल ब्रीफिंग करते हैं। वो CSIR का है। हमारे पास एक हेलीबॉर्न टेक्नोलॉजी है जिसके माध्यम से आप हेलीकॉप्टर के ऊपर ऐसा कैमरा लगता है कि वो अंदर से चित्र लेता है। अयोध्या में भी उसका उपयोग किया गया, और हमारे जो पायलट प्रोजेक्ट्स थे वो राजस्थान से ही इत्तेफाक शुरू हुए। जहाँ आप बात कर रहे हैं, राजस्थान, हरियाणा, 3 प्रदेशों से शुरू की, तो उसका उपयोग अगर आवश्यकता पड़ी तो की जा सकता है, या वहाँ से इस प्रकार का प्रस्ताव आया।
Thank you, sir. Thank you, friends. Please join us for lunch on the last day of the 2024. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.